are going to start from the Mishnah. So the Mishnah on Ayin Vav Amud Bet. The Elu and Herogim. So now we go to we did Skila and Streifa. Now we're on to Hereg, which is death by the sword. Harotzeach v'anshe Yonidachas. Only two: the murderer and the people of the Yonidachas, the whole city that worships Avodah Zarah. So now we're going to spend the next few Mishnayot focusing on the parameters of Ritzicha. So that's an interesting aspect of Sanhedrin, which is that places that you get some basic parameters of some averot defined, where elsewhere they would not be defined. So we had that before by Ben Sora Mora, and now we're going to have it by Ritzicha. So Harotzeach Shehika. So Rotzeach Shehikas Re'eu be'even or be'barzel. If he smote somebody with either a stone or iron or something metal, so clearly directly by either by wounding or by puncturing, by stabbing, or just held him underwater, or in a fire, and prevented him from getting out of there, even though he didn't actually put him into the water, and he died chayav, he's chayav. Now, somewhat ironically, if he actively pushed him into the water or the fire, it's still, obviously, if he cannot get out, he would be chayav. Obviously, that's a kal v'chomer from holding him there, but there's a case he'd be pater. Why? If he had the ability to get out from there, from the moment of being pushed, let's say, and something happened and he couldn't, patur, he'd be exempt. Now, that seems very bizarre, even if the guy was trying to get himself out, and nevertheless, the guy who pushed him in is exempt. But this gets to a general rule that even if it's like a case of a stone, there's an idea that it has to have a shi'ur mitah, that the stone or whatever that he was hit with, we have to look at it and assess that it had the size and the weight and whatever, that under normal circumstances it could have killed him. Otherwise, we assume that what he did was not an act of murder, he did an act of wounding, and then something happened and the guy died. That was considered to be unexpected or freak, but it wasn't that the act himself he did at the time could have anticipated that it would have actually killed him. So the same is true about this case about the fire and the water. Push somebody in and somebody's able to swim, then the act is not considered an act of murder, even if something happens to the guy and he all of a sudden gets a cramp or something unusual and he's not able to get out from there. Okay. Let's say he sicked his dog or the snake on him, he is exempt because that is considered grama, even though he obviously is intending it or whatever. He did not directly attack the person himself. He did it through the agency of this dog, and ultimately it was the dog who was doing it. Let's say he took a snake and directly put the fangs of the snake into the person. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev, Chachamim potem. Rabbi Yehuda says Chachamim say you're exempt. Obviously, Rabbi Yehuda's position here seems to make no sense because he is directly doing it. So we will see. But like we know by nezek, by damages, causation is not enough. You need a direct act of murder, and directly, through the person, through the things that he is using to hit, to stab, to hold the guy under the fire, things that cause those things to happen. That's not seen as the person's direct action, even though it definitely causes death. The person cannot be executed. The Gemara often says that you're still liable in heaven. Rambam actually calls such people rotzchim. They are murderers, but just murderers who cannot be executed. Okay, but that's important, that a part of what we're doing here is defining exactly the parameters of what is considered to be the person's action and direct action and an act of murder. So let's take a look. When it speaks about iron, it does not say, by other things, it says even yad, a stone of the hand, or klietz yad, a wooden thing that fits in the hand. And from that idea, like it's a handful, we get the idea that it has to have a shi'ur, it has to be big enough to actually cause, weighty enough and so on. And that's the idea that we measure and determine at the moment whether this thing we anticipate could cause death. But it doesn't say by barzel, barzel, it doesn't say like kli barzel yad. It just says in bekli barzel. So why doesn't it say yad? Shabarzel may meet b'choshu, because a metal vessel can actually kill even a small amount. There is no shear. But now the Gemara says that the context makes a difference, because it says Tanya Nami Hachi, we taught similarly Rabbi Omer, it's known before the one who said and created the world that iron has the ability, and metal has the ability to kill even the smallest amount. Therefore, the Torah did not give a minimum amount, because even the smallest amount has the ability to kill. But now the Gemara qualifies, that's only if you use it for cutting or for puncturing, for stabbing. If you try to hit somebody with a metal vessel, then obviously you would have a shear just like a wooden one would. Okay, the now the person is held underneath water. The beginning tells us is a chiddush and the end is a chiddush. The first case where it's considered an act of murder, it doesn't have you pushing this guy being pushed into the water. The guy was in the water anyway. He was going swimming. Okay, so the murderer did not push him. He just held him under the water. But since it's impossible to get out, and this person is holding him under, that's considered an act of murder. We don't say it's grama. You are under the water anyway. I was just preventing you from getting out. The fact that I was preventing you is considered to be holding you underwater and is considered an act of murder. Sefer Rebusa Kamash Malan, the end is a chiddush. Even if he actively pushed him into the water of the fire, since it would be expected that he could get out of there, but something happened and he died, patur, he's exempt. Okay, so that's what we said before, that the safe is the idea that you assess it based on what could have been sort of what was seen as what it have the ability to do as being able to be assessed at that moment, even if something unexpected happens. Now the question also is, like, let's say he didn't know about something. Like, let's say the guy had, I don't know, a leg cramp that the murderer didn't know about. So anyway, interesting ways of trying to figure out exactly what it means that something happened, or what it was he could have under what circumstances. Let's say there was a seaweed underwards that nobody knew about, but the guy got his leg caught in the seaweed. So again, how do you determine could have? But anyway, that is the idea that the act has to be defined as an act of murder at the time, in terms of the ability to murder. But as we see, by holding the guy underwater, it can just be by preventing something from happening, that is actually preventing him from getting out, that is considered holding him, that is considered an active act. Okay, now, kavash minalan, where do you know that holding the guy underwater is considered an act of murder? Amar Shmuel Damar Kra, because the verse says, O be'eva, or with hatred. The Rabbi, so the extra word "o," I didn't say "be'eva" or somehow. That tells you the Rabbi that extra word tells you that even this act of holding the guy is considered an act of keeping the guy under the water, is an act of murder. Now there was a certain person that took his friend's animal and held it underwater. Not underwater, b'shimsha. Sort of kept it in the sun, prevented it from getting shade, and it died of sunstroke. Umesa, so that's should be just like the case of our Mishnah. Ravina mechayev, Ravacha braid barav potters. Ravina says you're chayev, and Ravacha barav says you're exempt. Ravina mechayev kavachomer. You learn it out from Motzeach. By Motzeach, it's a narrower category. I mean, Motzeach obviously is much more stringent, but it's a narrower category because it's more stringent, punishable by death. It's a much more narrow category of who we say actually has done an act of murder. So by Motzeach, we would never say that if somebody did it by accident, it was like they did it willingly, and unintentional is like intentional. Nevertheless, Torah says holding somebody keeping somebody in their place and preventing them to escape something that's killing them is considered an act of murder. So nizikin she'asaben shogi kamezi bonus kiratzon. Nezek, we know the Torah is a broader category. Even though you need an act, you don't need intent. Even somebody that's accidental, negligent, or even an onus completely out of the hand. When an adam amazik is adamud la'olam, so it's much broader. You don't even need intent. So certainly the act would be defined. You wouldn't define the act more narrowly. So holding someone in a position that doesn't let them free themselves, or the animal, and then the animal dies, that is an act of mazik. Makes a lot of sense. Rav Acha Barav poter, but Rav Acha Barav says you're exempt. Why? Amar Misharshi, my time of Davud Abba. What was the reason of my father's father, was his grandfather, to poter? Amar Kra, the verse says, Mot Yumad Hamakev Rotzeachu. Rotzeachu Dechayev La Mitzamtzem. He is a murderer. That who is saying this extra idea that even holding a guy underwater, we're going to say you're chayev. That's specifically by a murder, but nizikin lo chayev la mitzamtzem, not by nizikin. I really have to tell you that I don't begin to understand this. Why, which would be a narrow definition. I mean, even like by a public policy issue, and you could sort of say, we want to punish murder and so on. Besides that, there's all these ways in which we exempt murder. And we really try, like always, to not use the death penalty. But we also want damages to go, to be punished. And since more broadly we're ready to make somebody pay for damages, it is very strange, this opinion that mitzamtzem is exempt by nizikin. Anyway, that is the position. Now, Tosfos here, some of these large Tososim, which thankfully cut the size of the daf into like a third, are not really related to us. They're really about nizikin issues. So, for example, the first one is about the issue about is it really true that Adam is muad la'olam, or are there cases in which an Adam is not muad la'olam, in which a person actually needs a certain degree of fault or negligence or whatever? That's a major issue of Tosfos and Ramban, a major debate in many places in Shas. The next one is the issue about nizikin, mitzamtzem, and Tosfos' general comparison to, it seems like the general assumption here is that if you're chayiv for rotzeach, you're going to be chayiv for nizikin, right? That's the first opinion. That certainly makes the most sense. And then trying to raise questions based on certain sugyas in the Gemara where it seems like it doesn't fit with other things that we know about nizikin. But anyway, and then there's an interesting thing here about how he uses the idea of eish, which I'll get to. Actually, that's the next Tosfos, which I'll get to later. Okay, but anyway, those Tosfos seem are much more about nizikin issues. Let's go back to our Gemara. Amar Rava, says Rava, Kafsohu meis b'ra'av pater. If somebody bound somebody up and let the guy starve to death, he's exempt. Now, how is that different than holding the guy underwater? Because the idea is that he's not right now starving. Right now, he's not. So it's like we're going to see in a minute, if you bound somebody up and a fire was going to come or the sun was going to come and so on, but you weren't directly holding the person in the place where that thing that is killing him is already present, then it's not like you killed him. It's grama. As I said, you might be a rotzeach. You definitely caused his death. But to kill him means to directly do an act that is basically, like you're holding him under the water, you are drowning him. Here, you're binding him up and then leaving him to die. All right, so that's the difference, because he's not in the middle of, of this thing that is killing him right now. Kafso meis b'rav patur, you're exempt. Rav also said, Kafso b'chamo meis, b'tzina umeis chayav. If the guy was in the sun or in cold, and you bound him up, you're chayav. Now that's actually a little different, right? Because normally people can be exposed to the sun and the cold for a while and nothing happens to it. So even though the thing is already active, like if the person will die from sunstroke or will die from, sun exposure or from exposure to the cold, at this moment, you don't think that they're in the process of being killed or some killing thing, something that is threatening their life being on top of them. But nevertheless, we say that that's like holding the guy under the water, holding the guy in the fire. That thing that eventually will kill them is already on top of them. And therefore, you, by holding and making, and even though you don't continue to hold, you bind them up and you walk away, but you've sort of pushed them into that thing in a way in which they can't get out of it. And that thing is going to kill them. And that thing was there right then. Like if you threw somebody into you locked the door on somebody, you walked away. You're not holding them when the fire kills them, but you have kept them in a situation in which the killing thing is present. Therefore, and that is considered an act of murder. Okay, you have done the act of murder, and then eventually the thing will overcome them and take their life, but you've already done the act of murder. But the active thing that's going to kill them has to be present. Okay, and that's the difference between these cases. And as gets also very clarified by the next line. Ve'amar Rava also says, Kafso b'chama, we just did that. Sof chama lavo, sof tzina lavo. Let's say you tied them up and it was a nice, beautiful, cool day and or it was nighttime even, whatever, but you knew that the sun was going to come out, and by the time the sun came out, if the person was left in that sun, they would die from heat exposure. The same by the cold. Right now, the weather, you could stay there for a year and you'd be fine, but a big cold frost is about to hit, and you knew that, and you tied the person up and left them there. Since the cold was not currently present, that same coldness that was sort of going to kill them as it continued, so what you did is you left them to die, but you did not do an act of killing them. Sof chamalavo, sof tinalavo, patur, you're exempt. Ve'amar Rava, Rava also says, kofso lifnei ari patur, lifnei yetushim chayav. If you bind somebody up in front of a lion, you're patur. In front of gnats, the gnats eat the person alive, you're chayav. Now, what's the difference between the two? So Rashi says, by the lion, you could have run away anyway. That doesn't seem to fit what's going on here. Tosfos says that's the same issue we've been talking about. The ari is not currently eating the person. So, so that is seen as, although the ari is present, it's not on top of the person. And it's like, binding somebody up and then a river is going to come and wash the person away is not the same as holding them underwater. Whereas the gnats, the person is right now being attacked by mosquitoes and you're not letting the person escape. So there, the thing is on top. There is something, even though it's going to require a period of time, but holding the person in that thing that is killing them, or that will kill them, but they're already in that thing. Now, Ravashi says, even in front of gnats, you're exempt. Why? Honey asli v'hani asu, because it's not the same gnats. Like if you're in a swamp or whatever, the current mosquitoes will leave and others will come. So it's an interesting question. Like, do you view this as a force of nature, and like it's just, the ongoing presence of mosquitoes? Or do you say, no, each one is a different thing? You don't view the sun, that each one is a different sort of sun ray that's coming at you. That's just the continued thing. So that's a question of how to view this. Okay, Itmar, it was taught. Now, by the way, this Tosfos of Sof Chamalavo raises an important question, which he thinks that because there's a principle that Eisho Mishum Chitzav, that a fire is like your arrow, that he first assumes that means that if somebody lights a fire and it can be anticipated it will spread, and it spreads and kills somebody, that person has done an act of Ritzicha. Presumably the guy was warned and he was intending to do it and so on, as opposed to just directly applying the fire to the person. Because he learns that from above a common discussion about by damages, we say Eishos Mishum Chitzav, it's like your arrow, and there's a discussion there that Tosfos understands, tells you that you're Chayv Ritzicha. Not everybody agrees with that assumption. That's assumption number one. You light a fire and it'll spread, and it spreads, even though it took the wind to spread it or whatever, you knew that would happen. That's Ritzicha. But then Tosfos says, if that's true, so if when I do it and then it'll spread, it's Ritzicha. If I put somebody in front of, and the fire is coming down, right? And it'll take an hour for the fire to get to this house. But I lock somebody in this house, that's also Ritzicha, which is very strange because based on everything we've looked, that's a type of like a Sof Chamalavo. The fire isn't on top of him. But based on this idea that fire is like your arrow and it's in the process, Tosfos puts that in and it complicates issues. But then Tosfos steps back and says, that's maybe not true, and you would not be chai for Ritzicha, etc. So there's two questions. A, by a fire, when the fire continues, but at least I lit the fire. There you could see it's like, an arrow I shot and keeps on going. But then Tosfos to assume that if you put somebody in a place where then a fire will come, that's also Ritzicha, how is that different than this case? So Tosfos has to say, well, this case, the guy was already standing in the sun, and I just stopped him from moving. Or the guy who was already standing, then I just stopped him from moving. But if I bound somebody up and put him outside, and then eventually the sun was going to rise and the sun would kill him, that would be like lighting a fire and having the fire go kill him, which is, again, very, very strange. And in the end, Tosfos steps away from that. So the easiest thing to understand is bracket all that, and we're only talking about the case that the guy is already present in the presence and the thing that is going to kill him is on top of him. That would be a case that's considered an act of murder. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Now we have one more case amongst this, and it says the following. Okay. Kafa alav gigis, upara alav ma'aziva. Itmar was taught. Kafa alav gigis, you put a barrel on top of somebody, and they die basically out of suffocation. Upara alav ma'aziva, you tear the rooftop away from somebody, and they die because of exposure. Rabbi say, it's a debate now. Chad amar chayv, chad amar pater. One says chayv, one says pater. Tistayim, let us conclude. The Rav who damar pater. Rav is the one says you're exempt. Damar Rav kafo meit barav patur. That if he dies in hunger, you're exempt. So here too, it's going to be, he sort of sees this like the hunger. It's not like you're in the sky standing in the cold, you know. It's some, I don't get the guy about suffocating the guy in the barrel. That sort of much more seems to be like the case that the thing that's going to kill him is on top of him. But at least the case of the cold is something where it's considered to be that it's somehow it's going to come later. Maybe right now it's not yet cold. It's, again, hard to understand. Are we talking that it's on top of him or going to come later? But the Gemara initially compares it to something that's going to come later, like the hunger. So it says, where were we? It's time to the Potter. It's time to Rabbi Zera who damar Potter. No, Rabbi Zera is the one who says you're exempt. Damar Rabbi Zera says, somebody puts his friend into a marble house where, like, there could be, you know, no, like it's what do you say, like it's you know, hermetically sealed. Okay, the adlik le sharga, and lights a candle. Umeit chayav, then, and he died for chayav because presumably the candle eats up the oxygen, and that's like actively killing him. Okay, taima the adlik le sharga. That's because he lit the candle. That's seen as the act of murder. Hello, adlik le sharga. If he didn't light the candle, lo, it wouldn't be. So you see, and that's just like this case here about putting him in the barrel, is putting him in the house where eventually he'll die because of lack of oxygen. All right, but it's not happening like right away. So Amri, no, hasam below sharga lo matchil hefla. There, b'shate, there, without the candle, there was nothing problem right now. You know, there's plenty of air in the house. The idea that there's insufficient air doesn't start to become a problem until later. So there, the person was not in the middle of a process. That's why, in that case, you'd be potter. But here, by the barrel case, below sugar nami matzil hevla b'shate, the lack of air starts immediately, right? As soon as somebody's put in a barrel, upside down barrel that is, okay, all of a sudden they feel this lack of air. All right, so then again, if that's how we're describing it, the cold has already begun, the lack of air, you know, when you tear off the rooftop, the lack of air has already begun, then what's the debate? Then everybody should say that you're chayav. It should be like the case of the sun, you know, tying somebody up in the sun. Like, what exactly makes this case different? So if you look at Tosfos, this little Tosfos, he says, Kafal of Gigis on the bottom of Ein Zayin Amud Aleph. Kafal of Gigis, Tosu says, Lo dami l'sof chama lavo, l'sof tzina lavo. It's not like the thing will eventually come, right? The hasam leka chama v'tzina klal. It's not there at all. As opposed to this case, of course, we said was a case where, as the Gemara concludes, there's already lack of sufficient air. The lo matchil bei b'shate. It hasn't yet begun. Okay, so then compare it to a case of the guy's tying the guy up in the sun. V'lo dami l'kafso bichama v'tzina. Doesn't for asu alei mikodem chama v'tzina sheyesh bem kedei lahamis. There Tosu says it's like this sun is a sun that can kill if you're left in it long enough. But it's the same heat and the same cold. But if you're exposed to it long enough, so it's the same thing. How is that different than this case? Okay, here it's the thing is getting worse. So it also gets worse in the sun. But presumably there it's just the same heat over prolonged time. So there it's like that is something you put him right in the killing thing. Whereas presumably the case of the barrel is, you know, it starts with a certain amount of oxygen, then gets less oxygen, then gets less oxygen. So the absence of oxygen, as it was, grows. It's not like the same heat over more time. Somehow it's seen somewhat as the actual killing thing is changing. The killing thing is the absence of oxygen, and that's grown to be more powerful. I don't get the case exactly of ripping the rooftop top off of the guy. Maybe it's a case also where it's not so cold to begin with, and it gets colder, although that hasn't been explained. Okay, and so anyway, and Tosos just ends by saying, "V'dami l'kafsa b'rav shekfar yesh rav ma'at v'tamid mitchazek." Let's say the guy who you leave to starve to death was already, like, you know, it was after Yom Kippur, it was already quite hungry, but not enough to kill the person. Okay, so what would be that case? What's going to kill them again eventually isn't the same hunger, but it's a hunger that's going to grow. So that's the way Tosos understands it. You hold somebody in the thing that is killing them with given enough time, that's Ritzicha. You hold them in it and then something else is going to kill them from the situation they're in now, the sun will rise or whatever. Obviously, that's not. You hold somebody in something which the problem will increase over time. It's not the same thing. It will become bigger and a bigger issue. And that's going to be what's going to kill them. That is this debate here about the barrel and about the ripping of the rooftop off of something. Okay, so that's all the cases about mitzamtsein. Now we're going to deal with cases not actively holding somebody over, but like two-step things, like indirect. Let's take a look. Amar Rava, says Rava, Dachfo lebor v'sulam bebor. You push a guy into a well, and there's a ladder. So that act of pushing him into the well isn't murder. There's a ladder. Ubacher v'silko, somebody else comes and removes the ladder. Vafilu hu kadam v'silko. Or let's say you, the guy who's the murderer, comes and he removes the ladder. Potter, you're exempt. This is the irony, right? You can kill a guy and get away with murder, literally get away with murder. Okay? Why? The active act, the pushing in the bore, was not an act of murder. There was a ladder. The removing of the ladder afterwards is not an active act, is not like killing the person. It's just taking away the thing that's going to let the person escape. So that's grama. Now you might say, wait, why is that grama? How is it different than holding the guy under the water, right? You're like keeping the guy in the bore. But I can say one of two things. Number one is that you didn't actually do something to the guy. You just did something to the ladder, which raises an interesting question. Really? So if a guy's in a house that's a burning house and you lock the door and he can't get out because you didn't do something to the guy, that's not an act of murder. You have to touch the guy. Like that's one definite possibility, but that needs to be explored. The other possibility is not because you didn't touch the guy, but because, sort of like we were talking about before, being in the well isn't what kills him. What kills him is the fact that he's going to die out of starvation. And that's not something you're doing right now. That's something that's going to come later. Okay, so two very different reasons why removing the ladder would not be chayav. Okay, for Amar Rava, Rava also said, Zarak chait v'tris biyado, shoot an arrow at a guy. And the guy's holding a shield. So the shooting of the arrow is not an act of murder. And somebody comes and removes the shield before the arrow gets to him. And then the arrow gets to him and kills him. Or even you're super fast. Or like, let's say you have a string and you pull the string away from the guy and the arrow goes, you pull the string and the shield yanks away from the guy and the arrow goes and kills him. You're exempt. At the time you shot the arrow, these words are metaphor, but here they're literal. Your arrow has already ended, meaning that arrow shooting was not an act of murder. It was something that was going to be neutralized, and therefore the act of murder, as we've said before, is always defined at the moment, not after the fact, looking back. So at that moment, that was not an act of murder. Now, even though you had in mind to yank away the shield, that was a different act. So the act of shooting there was not an act of murder, and the yanking away of the shield is just taking away something that's protecting the guy. It's not actually holding the guy in something that is killing him, and therefore it's grama. Okay. Rava also says, Zarak bochet v'samanim biyado. You shoot an arrow at a guy, and the guy's got some type of medicines in his hand that are going to be able to heal the wound. All right, let's take an example, maybe make it a little bit more relatable. The guy's holding on to, you inject the guy with snake venom, but he's holding on to anti-venom. And all he has to do is take it and be fine. Okay, so where are we? He's running, somebody comes and scatters knocks the anti-venom out of his hand. Even the murderer comes and knocks the anti-venom out of his hand. So, Potter, you're exempt. The Shadabe, when the arrow was shot at him, or in my example, the venom, he could have healed himself. Now, this is a much bigger chiddush, because the venom or the arrow will kill the person, right? It's just that he can now go ahead and heal himself. But if he doesn't heal himself, right, this is the thing actually that will kill. So you would say that's an act of murder. Doing something that has that thing now on its own, left to itself, will kill the person. That's if the guy heals himself, you got saved, you got off the hook. Obviously, only if it kills him is an act of murder. But anyway, that is actually the thing that is going to kill the person all on its own without anything else assisting it. Right? It will kill the person. You would say that's an act of murder. And Rava says no. If the guy who is being shot at has the ability to heal himself, then in that context, since we assume people will heal themselves, that is not seen as an act of murder. And then afterwards, it's just grama. So now the Gemara says, well, if you want to go that far, says the Gemara, Amar Ravashi, says Ravashi, Hilkach, therefore, afilu samanim bishuk, even if he doesn't have the anti-venom, but it's available in the marketplace. since he has access to it and could get it in time, when you shot the guy, you didn't kill him because he can just go ahead and fix it himself, go to the marketplace and buy it. Presumably he's got enough money or whatever. Okay. Amalei Ravacha, Breda Ravashi. Let's see how far we can push this. Let's say the guy inserted the venom and the victim didn't have anti-venom and it wasn't in the marketplace. And then before he died, somebody said, wait, I got some anti-venom and offered it to him. And then he, for whatever reason, decided not to take it. So would you say there that was an act of murder? Okay, so it seemed to me, yes. At the moment that was happened, it was going to kill him. By some nace, somebody showed up with anti-venom and for whatever reason, he didn't use it. Okay, but at the moment it was going to kill him and it did kill him. So I'm like, no, based in Zakai. Since for a moment the murderer got off, as soon as the guy showed up with the anti-venom, this guy now could be saved. And that would have meant that, this thing isn't lethal. Okay, get him off. The fact that something happened before it killed him, that if this person would have acted on it, actually could have saved himself, that means that it's now not an act of murder, which is all of this is very, very shocking. It just shows how narrowly we are defining sort of this act. But that one, I must tell you, even in a formal sense, I don't really get it. Rashi says, the phrase of Yotami based in Zakai, Rashi says, Ein lanu l'chayvo, matzalo zichus, like it's a way to get him off. The idea that we're really trying to avoid executing. Okay. Now we move from this idea that the act was nothing, but then you did, well, not nothing, but whatever, wasn't enough, and then you did something else that made it potent. Now we're going to get to this question about what defines an act. So we already had holding the guy under, but now we're going to deal with like when your energy sort of gets redirected. Let's take a look. So, okay. Amarava, Zorak Tzur Bekota v'chazor la'achureha, the hargachai. So somebody throws a rock, and he's a really good shot. He's been practicing, and it rebounds, and it kills somebody on the rebound. And that was his intention. So you're chayav. That's still all of your act, your energy into the rock, and continues to propel the rock, okay? And therefore, you're going to be chayav, and you intended to do it. Now, what if you, rather than throwing against a wall where it's all still your energy, well, I guess even if you threw it against like a trampoline or something, it's still your energy. It just preserves more of it. Right, so all those cases, it's still your energy in the rock, and you intended it, and you're chayav. So v'tanatuna, we taught similarly in a braita, like people that they sort of, it's like a what's that called, a squash. They throw a ball on against a wall and want it to rebound very far. Shahargu b'mezid, if they did something like that and killed somebody, if it was intentional, then it's an act of murder and they'd be executed. But shogeg, golin, if it was unintentional, they would be exiled. So it says Pishogi Golem Pshita, that's obvious. Like by exile, you don't need as much of an intentional act or even as direct of an act, right? I mean, accidentally the top of the hatchet flies off, right? That's Gola. So of course you'd be Gola. This is fine. The Chiddush is that it's considered, when it's intentional, it's considered an act of murder. Ma'udatema, I might have thought, where I lost my place, Hatra Safeku, maybe it's doubtful warning. Meaning, of course, it's kocho, it's your energy. That's not an issue. But I might have thought it's doubtful warning. Mi yemar dehadra, who would have said that it's going to, come back the way you intended? Kamash malan, that it's not considered. If this is what the guy's trying to do, and it turns out he did do it, and some people are able, have the skill. So it's not a suffix. This is exactly what he's trying to do, even though something could always happen to set it off, to make it, to make it not do what was intended. Nevertheless, it's considered that was the intent, and that's what the person had the ability to do. Tani Rabbi Tachlifa Bar Marava coming to Rabbi Avo. So Rabbi Tachlifa Bar Marava taught in front of Rabbi Avo. Kigon Elu Hamasachakim B'Chadur Shahargu Toch Arba Amos Pater. Those who are playing with the ball, if it killed within 4 amot, they're exempt. Chutzla Arba Amot, more than Arba Amot, it rebounded more than Arba Amot, Chayiv, they're Chayiv. So what difference does that make? Ravina Ravashi. Ravina said to Ravashi, Hechidami, what's the case? If you're trying to get it within 4 amot and it killed within 4 amot, so afilu portanami, even less than 4 amot, you should be chayav. If you're not trying, afilu chuvanami lo, even if it goes very far, you should be exempt if it did something you weren't intending. Amarle, so he said back to him, Stam misachakim b'kadur. No. Because the normal cases of people that are playing with ball come at the ayot fei or something. The azil minei. the more that it rebounds, meinich nayichle, the more they want it, which means what? Which means by default, we can assume he was trying to get it out of Arba Amot. So if it went within Arba Amot, that was seen to do not what he was intending. Now, the big question here is this talking about intentional murder and getting the death penalty, or unintentional and getting galus? It's very hard to read it intentional. Because if intentional, who cares what normal ball players are trying to do? This guy was trying to kill the person, and he tried to do it by getting a rebound. So who cares what it means? Most of the time, people are only trying to get it to be more than 4 amot. Who the heck cares? This is what this guy tried, and he murdered the guy. So it seems like we're talking about a case. I mean, Rashi and Tosfos debate this or discuss it. And they're bothered either way. It seems like we're talking about a case that was unintentional. People were playing ball. It was reckless, and it wound up killing somebody. And then we're saying, oh, so if it was within 4 amot, that clearly was not what they were trying to do, and therefore they'd be exempted for galus. If it rebounded as far as they were trying, and it accidentally killed somebody, they're chayiv and galus. So that all makes sense. That we're talking about unintentional. The problem is that why would you be exempt from galus even if it did something you weren't trying to do? The classic case of galus is that the guy is chopping wood and the head of the hatchet flies off and kills somebody. That's much more unintentional, and that's galus. So why should the fact that you were trying to get the ball to rebound 4 amot and only rebound 2 amot be enough to get you off? So that's what Tosfos discusses. He really, at the end, he doesn't know the answer to that. If you look at the last line of Tosfos, he says, Umiyu Tema, this is the narrowest of the last of the narrow lines. How to plead Rabbi Rabbanan Bereishei Lo Golem B'Nishmat Barzel Mikito, when the hatchet flies off of the handle, Mina Eight Mitbakea, or or some splinter flies off of the wood that's being chopped. The Mar Mechai Bahai, one way or another, you're chayiv in one of those scenarios. Am I chayiv? Hi Kavin Kimonis Kavin Lizrok Bet V'Zarak Darba. Tinis Kavin Lebekias Eitzim Shalafana Balachal Meirachuk. Okay, so it doesn't really explain why that case is more chayav than when you're trying to have it rebound a lot and only rebounds a little. So I don't know. But anyway, when we get to Makas, we can worry more about galus. Let's go back to the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara says L'meimra D'chia Gavna Kochahu. So the real point here of Rabbi's teaching is that when something rebounds, it's still your energy, and it's chayav. Because remember, you need your physical act or your energy. Like if you throw a rock, that's still your act because your energy is in the rock, even though you're not a part of your body that hits the guy, or you shoot an arrow. And when it rebounds, it's still your energy. Okay, that's the basic chiddush. For Amini, I'll ask you on this. Hamikadesh v'nafel kiddush al yado ol atzad. So basically, when you add the ashes of the paraduma to the water, that's considered kiddush. You're sanctifying it, and it has to be added through your act and your energy. Okay, so let's say you were going and adding those ashes, but it fell on your hand. It didn't go straight into the water, and then from your hand it went into the water, or it hit the side of the vessel, and from there it fell into the water. The achach nafel is shoken, and then it fell into the trough. So pasul, it's not a good putting of the water because it wasn't your energy. Why not? It just rebounded. So the Gemara says no. It didn't bounce off with your initial energy. It hit your hand and landed on your hand, and then it just fell off by gravity. So that's not your energy, and therefore that's why it's not your placing into the water. Tashma, come in here. Now, so let's say you had a needle that was on a piece of pottery, and now you're splashing the ashes of paraduma, the water, the water of the paraduma with the ashes on that needle in order to purify the needle. Now you have to do it. You have the same thing here. When you're purifying, it needs to be your energy that is causing the water to hit the thing. So what happens? So vihiza aleha. So the water is on top of this needle. Safek ala machad hiza, safek ala cheres hiza. You don't know, did the water initially hit the needle, or did it initially hit the pottery and from there rebound onto the needle? Apostle, it's invalid. So I'm saying, why is it invalid? As long as it rebounded, it should be your energy, it should be fine. So Amar Rav Chinana bar Yehuda Mishmei Rav Matzah Itmar. It's not that it was mitzah, it rebounded on it, it was matzah. You found the water on the needle. And you don't know, how did the water get on the needle? Did it get on it because it went straight, or if it rebounded, then it would be fine? Or did it get on it because it landed on the pottery and then slowly, made its way to the needle. Then it wouldn't be your energy, and then it would be no good. Okay. Amar of Papa. One more case for today. This is a hugely important psak about defining cases of like grama and masa. Somebody binds up his friend and puts him right in front of a dam, then opens up the dam gates or the sluice gates, whatever they're called. So Girei Didehu, those are his arrows, meaning even though you are not actually either shooting and putting your energy into the thing, which is what we've been talking about now. It's not your body that's hitting the guy. It's not something that you put your energy into. You're not holding the guy under the water. Nevertheless, when you open up the sluice gates, the fact that the water initially comes out and hits the guy as soon as you open the gates, and you release that power by releasing that energy, that is like you put that energy into the water and you threw the water on the guy. So that's a very big chiddush. Okay, so let's read that again. That becomes your arrows. That you remove the thing that was holding back the water. That becomes your arrows. Umechayev and your chayev. Now, hani mili. Now, here's an important limitation about that. Hani mili b'korach risha, avo b'korach sheni grama ba'almahu. That's only if it's the first energy, but the second energy, it's only indirect causation. What's the difference? Well, first, what's just description of the difference? So Rashi says the description of the difference is: did you remove it and then immediately it's like the water released, and immediately the first thing that happened is it hit the guy and it killed him? Or is the guy a little bit further away from where the sluice gates are, and when you open it, first the water hits the bed of the the riverbed, and then it proceeds on. So the water sort of goes in like two stages. So that's what Rashi says. That already is just you caused it to happen. But it's obviously there are a lot of cases, it's not a precise definition, but somehow the initial releasing of energy, right? And then the thing happens. A good way to see would be, let's say, also you like removed the door from under something and it fell through a trap door. And that has like potential energy in it. And the releasing of that potential energy is like you put the energy in, and that you made that happen. That's when it happens in that first sort of, hit. But if it happens afterwards, then that's considered to be not yours. That's considered a grama. So one actually wonders, right? Let's say it's a case of like this, of like a rebound, let's say it's not like it says flowed. Let's say, the water hit the ground and then rebounded, and with that energy killed somebody. Or the case of let's say you had a ball, right? And you released the trap door and it fell down and rebounded and killed somebody. So if you had thrown it, we just got through learning that you'd be chayev. That rebound is your energy. Here, when you released it, does that become your energy and the rebound is chayev? Or no, since you didn't put the energy in, we're only going to say you're chayev if it hits initially. Anything after that initial moment, even if it's a direct rebound and it's with that energy, then that type of a case you're going to be patur. So that's not clear. Obviously, these are really core questions of how do you define action, your energy, your act, an indirect act, and so on. Okay, we will continue with this tomorrow.